The grand chamber of the Galactic Council stretched so wide that the far walls disappeared into a gentle haze. Thousands of seats rose in curved tiers, each one filled with a representative from the known species of the galaxy. The air hummed with translation devices, turning countless languages into something everyone could understand. Chancellor Veshra stood at the center podium, her crystalline body reflecting the lights in strange patterns. She had lived for 600 years and presided over the council for the last 2 centuries. In all that time, she had never called an emergency session quite like this one. "This tribunal will now begin," her voice echoed through the chamber, clear and cold. "We gather to address a serious matter. Ambassador Taesung of the Valorian Empire stands accused of unauthorized military action against a newly discovered species." Taesung rose from his seat in the Valorian section. He was tall and broad-shouldered, his uniform covered in medals that caught the light. He looked confident, almost bored. This was a formality, nothing more. He had followed procedure. Everything had been done correctly. "The species in question calls themselves humans," Veshra continued. "Their homeworld is named Earth, located in the outer spiral arm of the galaxy. They achieved faster-than-light travel only 3 standard cycles ago." A ripple of understanding moved through the chamber. 3 cycles. Barely spacefaring at all. Many species in the room had been traveling the stars for thousands of years. "Ambassador Taesung, you may present your case," Veshra said. Taesung walked to the speaker's platform with easy steps. He activated the holographic display with a casual gesture. Images appeared in the air above the chamber floor, showing star charts and trade routes. "Honorable council members," he began, "my actions were completely justified under Section 47 of the Integration Protocols. The humans had been operating ships in established trade corridors without proper authorization. They ignored 3 separate warnings to register with the Trade Authority. They refused to pay the standard passage fees." He switched the display to show small human ships moving through space. They looked crude compared to the sleek Valorian vessels, cobbled together from mismatched parts. When diplomatic channels failed, I authorized a demonstration of force, as is standard procedure for newly spacefaring species who do not understand galactic law. I took 12 warships to their homeworld, not to destroy, but to encourage compliance. A show of power to make them see reason. Several council members nodded. This was indeed standard procedure. New species often needed to learn their place in the galactic order. A display of superior firepower usually convinced them to cooperate without any actual violence. "The humans should have surrendered immediately," Taesung continued. "Any rational species would have. 12 military-grade warships against a planet that had only just discovered quantum-fold technology. The outcome should have been obvious. And yet," Veshra interrupted, "your fleet was destroyed. Your flagship barely escaped. You lost 11 ships and over 4,000 crew members. Against a species you describe as primitive." Taesung's confident expression flickered for just a moment. The humans fought with tactics that violated every civilized rule of engagement. They used suicide attacks. They rammed our ships with civilian vessels. They showed no regard for their own lives. They defended their home, a voice called from the gallery. The chamber fell silent. All eyes turned to the human delegation section. It was a small group, only 5 individuals. They sat quietly in seats designed for much larger beings, looking tiny and out of place in the vast chamber. One of them stood. She was small by galactic standards, barely reaching the shoulder height of most species present. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple tie. She wore a plain uniform with no decorations except a single patch on her shoulder, showing a blue and green planet. "Captain Hannah of the Earth Defense Forces," Veshra said. You are recognized. Hannah walked down to the chamber floor. Her steps were quiet but purposeful. Several council members leaned forward in their seats. There was something about the way she moved that made them pay attention. Ambassador Taesung says we violated civilized rules of engagement, Hannah said. Her voice was steady and clear. But we were never given a chance to learn these rules. Your ships appeared near our moon without warning. You charged weapons. You demanded immediate surrender. Standard procedure, Taesung interrupted. A demonstration of superior force to avoid unnecessary conflict. You pointed weapons at our home, Hannah replied. At our families. Our children. Everything we have ever known or loved. And you expected us to simply submit because your ships were bigger than ours. She activated her own holographic display. The image showed Earth from space, a beautiful blue marble hanging in the darkness. Then the Valorian ships appeared, massive and threatening, weapons glowing with building energy. This is what we saw, Hannah said quietly. Alien ships. Unknown intentions. Unknown capabilities. Weapons pointed at our planet. We had no way of knowing if you would honor any surrender. No way of knowing if this was a prelude to invasion or extermination. The chamber was completely silent now. Even the constant background hum of translation devices seemed muted. So we did what any species would do when faced with an existential threat, Hannah continued. We fought back with everything we had. Taesung laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. Everything you had? Civilian ships with improvised weapons? Mining vessels and cargo haulers? That is not a military force. That is suicide? It was sufficient, Hannah said simply. She changed the holographic display. Now it showed the battle from multiple angles, recorded by various satellites and ships. The council members watched as hundreds of small human craft launched from Earth and its orbital stations. They swarmed toward the Valorian fleet like angry insects. The human ships were small and fragile compared to the armored Valorian warships. But there were so many of them, and they moved with a coordination that seemed almost choreographed. They came from every direction at once, overwhelming the Valorian targeting systems. When weapons failed, the human ships rammed the Valorian hulls. When that wasn't enough, they detonated their own power cores at point-blank range, turning themselves into bombs. The council watched in growing horror as human after human sacrificed themselves without hesitation. 80 minutes. That was how long the battle lasted. 80 minutes from the first shot to the moment Taesung's crippled flagship fled into quantum fold, leaving debris and bodies behind. This footage is falsified, Taesung said, but his voice lacked conviction. No species fights like this. It is not logical. It is not rational. You are correct, Hannah agreed. It was not rational. It was necessary. You attacked Earth, Ambassador. You pointed weapons at our homeworld and demanded our submission. What did you expect us to do? She turned to face the full council, her expression calm but her eyes hard as stone. We did not ask to be discovered. We did not ask for your laws, or your trade routes, or your integration protocols. We were simply living our lives, learning to travel the stars, exploring our small corner of the galaxy. And then you came with warships and demands. Vesher raised one crystalline hand. Captain Hannah, the Council understands your position. But surely you must see that such violent resistance was extreme. The Valorian fleet could have simply destroyed your planet from orbit. Could they? Hannah asked. We did not know. We still do not know. All we knew for certain was that surrender meant placing our survival in the hands of strangers who had already demonstrated hostile intent. That was a risk we could not take. She deactivated the holographic display and walked back toward the human delegation section. But before she sat down, she turned one more time to face the council. You called this a tribunal to judge Ambassador Taesong's actions. But understand this. From our perspective, we are the ones who were attacked. We are the victims here. And we responded the only way we knew how. We survived. The chamber erupted in debate as Hana took her seat. Some council members argued that the humans had overreacted. Others pointed out that the Valorians had indeed initiated hostilities. A few simply sat in stunned silence, trying to process what they had witnessed. Chancellor Veshera called for order, her voice cutting through the chaos. This tribunal will recess for 6 hours while the council reviews all evidence and consults with advisors. We reconvene at the 19th bell. As the chamber began to empty, Taesung remained standing at his position, staring at the human delegation. They filed out quietly, paying him no attention. Just 5 small beings who should have been irrelevant in the grand scope of galactic politics. But Taesung could not shake the image of those hundreds of human ships, throwing themselves against his fleet without hesitation or fear. No species in the galaxy fought like that. No one willingly chose death over surrender. What kind of species had he attacked? And more importantly, what had he awakened? The council chambers filled again after the recess. The atmosphere had changed. Word of the human testimony had spread through the station. And now the gallery seats were packed with observers from dozens of species, all wanting to see these strange newcomers who had destroyed a Valorian battle fleet. Chancellor Veshera took her position at the central podium. This tribunal will now hear additional testimony regarding the incident at Earth. Captain Hana, the council requests a complete breakdown of your defense strategy. Hana stood and made her way to the speaker's platform. Behind her, another human followed. He was older, with gray streaks in his dark hair and the weathered look of someone who had spent years in space. His uniform bore more markings than Hana's, including a patch that showed a sword crossed with an olive branch. This is Admiral Jinho, Hana introduced. He coordinated Earth's defensive response. Jinho bowed slightly to the council, a gesture of respect that seemed out of place given what everyone knew he had done. When he spoke, his voice was rough but clear. Honorable council members, I want to make one thing perfectly clear from the start. We did not want this fight. We did not seek conflict with the Valorian Empire or anyone else. But when 12 warships appeared in our space with weapons charged, we had seconds to make a decision. He activated the holographic display. The image showed Earth's moon, peaceful and silver in the darkness. Then the Valorian ships materialized, their quantum fold drives leaving rippling distortions in space. Our long-range sensors detected the quantum fold signatures 3 minutes before the ships fully emerged. Jinho explained. That gave us barely enough time to sound the alarm. Every ship within range of Earth received an emergency broadcast. Military, civilian, commercial, private, everyone. The holographic display split into multiple screens, showing different locations around Earth, orbital stations, asteroid mining facilities, cargo depots, even luxury space hotels. Everywhere, the same scene played out. People stopped what they were doing and stared at screens showing the incoming Valorian fleet. We had no way of knowing your intentions, Jinho continued. Our best xenologists had theorized about first contact scenarios for decades. Most of them assumed peaceful interaction. Some warned of hostile encounters. But no one really knew what would happen when we finally met another spacefaring species. A council member from the reptilian Scrath species raised a clawed hand. Surely your people panicked? Surely there was chaos? There was fear, Jinho admitted. But not panic. You need to understand something about humans. We have been preparing for exactly this scenario since we first developed atomic weapons. Every major nation on Earth maintained emergency protocols for invasion by superior forces. The holographic display changed again, showing archived documents and training manuals. They were old, some dating back hundreds of years before humans had even left their own atmosphere. "We have fought wars on our own planet for thousands of years," Jinho said quietly. "Wars against enemies with superior technology, superior numbers, superior positions. We learned hard lessons about how to win when victory should be impossible. Those lessons became part of our military doctrine. And when we went to space, we brought that doctrine with us." Taesung stood suddenly in his section. "You are describing a species that glorifies warfare. This only proves that humans are too dangerous to be allowed free access to galactic space." "We do not glorify war," Hana cut in, her voice sharp. "We simply refuse to be helpless. There's a difference." Vesher gestured for calm. "Admiral Jinho, please continue your testimony." Jinho nodded. "When the Valorian ships appeared, I was aboard the Orbital Defense Station Unity 7. We have 6 such stations around Earth, built ostensibly for asteroid deflection and debris management. But they also serve a secondary purpose as command and control nodes in case of attack." He zoomed in on one of the stations, showing its internal structure. It looked like a civilian facility with living quarters and research labs. But deeper in the structure were armored command centers and weapon storage areas. Within 90 seconds of detecting the Valorian fleet, I had established contact with all 6 defense stations, the lunar colonies, and the Mars outposts. Within 3 minutes, we had a battle plan. It was not sophisticated. It was not elegant. But it would work. The display showed a tactical map of the Earth-Moon system. Hundreds of small icons appeared, each representing a ship. Cargo haulers, mining vessels, passenger transports, research ships, even small personal craft. All of them began moving toward a single point, the Valorian fleet. "You mobilize civilian vessels," a council member observed, sounding disturbed. "You put non-combatants in harm's way." "Every one of those ships volunteered," Jinho replied. "We broadcast the situation on all channels. We explained that hostile vessels had appeared with weapons charged. We called for any ship that could fight to rally to Earth's defense. And they came." On the display, one ship broke formation and accelerated toward the Valorian fleet. It was a mining vessel, normally used for extracting ice from comets. A message appeared next to it, a transcript of the pilot's final transmission. "This is the ice hauler Northern Light. I have a wife and 2 kids on Earth. If anyone thinks I am going to let aliens threaten my family without a fight, they can go to hell." Engaging the enemy, the Northern Light accelerated to ramming speed, its reinforced hull designed for pushing aside space debris, now aimed at a Valorian warship. Point defense lasers sliced into it, but the ship kept coming. It struck the warship's shield at full velocity, and both shield and ship exploded in a brief flash of light. The council chamber was silent. "That was the first casualty," Jinho said softly. "Captain Minho Park, age 43. He damaged the Valorian shield generator enough that the next 3 ships were able to penetrate and deliver their payloads." The display continued showing the battle. It was brutal and chaotic, nothing like the clean tactical engagements the Council was familiar with. Human ships swarmed the Valorian vessels from all directions, sacrificing themselves to create openings for others. One cargo hauler dumped its entire load of iron ore directly into the path of a Valorian ship, forcing it to maneuver and exposing its engines. 2 research vessels rammed it from opposite sides while it was distracted. A passenger transport that should have been carrying tourists instead fired improvised missiles made from escape pod thrusters and fuel tanks. "Your people used nuclear weapons," Taesung accused. "We detected at least 6 atomic detonations." 7, Jinho corrected. "From mining charges?" We use small nuclear devices for asteroid excavation. They are not weapons, technically, but they work well enough when you detonate one inside an enemy ship's shield perimeter. He showed footage of a small maintenance craft, barely larger than a personal vehicle, slipping through the debris field and attaching itself to a Valorian hull. The pilot transmitted a single message: for Earth. Then the nuclear mining charge it carried detonated, blowing a hole in the warship's armor. These people were heroes, Hannah said, her voice thick with emotion. They knew they were going to die. Every single one of them knew. But they flew anyway because Earth needed them. The battle continued on the display. 18 minutes of desperate fighting. The Valorian ships were superior in every way. Faster, stronger, better armed. But the humans just kept coming wave after wave, using tactics that made no sense to species accustomed to logical, calculated warfare. One Valorian ship tried to retreat to a safer distance. Human ships pursued it, ramming it again and again until its engines failed. Another attempted to target Earth directly, charging a surface bombardment weapon. 3 human vessels simultaneously detonated their reactor cores next to it, the combined explosion overwhelming its shields and cracking its hull. You destroyed 11 of our 12 ships, Taesung said. Killed over 4,000 Valorians. And you sit here claiming to be victims? Hannah turned to face him directly. You came to our home with weapons charged. You fired first. We simply finished what you started. Impossible. Taesung shook his head. No species fights like this. You should have surrendered. Any rational species would have surrendered and negotiated. Rational. Jinho repeated the word slowly. You keep using that word. But what is rational about trusting strangers who appear with overwhelming force and demand submission? What is rational about hoping the enemy will be merciful? He changed the display one more time. Now it showed casualty lists. Names scrolling by, thousands of them. Human names, each one representing someone who had died defending Earth. We lost 63,000 people in 18 minutes, Jinho said. Soldiers and civilians. Men and women. Young and old. They died because we could not risk surrender. They died because we had to assume the worst about your intentions. They died because that was the price of survival. The names continued to scroll. The council members watched in silence. But because of their sacrifice, Earth still exists, Hannah added. Our cities still stand. Our children still live. That is what matters. That is what they died for. Veshra studied the 2 humans carefully. You speak of survival as if it was genuinely in question. Surely you must have known that the Valorian fleet could have simply destroyed your planet from orbit. Could they have? Jinho asked. We had no way of knowing. We still do not know, for the council reconvened 12 hours later instead of 6. Chancellor Veshra had extended the recess after consulting with the council's historical archives and xenopsychology experts. What she learned had disturbed her deeply enough to call for additional testimony. The chamber was even more crowded now. News of Earth's defense had spread throughout the station, and representatives from nearly every member species had arrived to witness the proceedings. The gallery was packed with beings of every shape and size, all watching the small human delegation with a mixture of curiosity and fear. This tribunal will now hear expert testimony regarding human cultural and historical development, Veshra announced. The council has invited Professor Byung-Hoo of the Earth Academic Institute to provide context for humanity's response to the Valorian incursion. A third human stood from the delegation section. He was older than the others, wearing simple civilian clothes instead of a uniform. He carried a data tablet and walked with the slightly distracted manner of someone more comfortable with books than battlefields. As he made his way to the speaker's platform, a ripple of surprise moved through the chamber. The Council rarely invited representatives from newly discovered species to serve as expert witnesses. It was an honor normally reserved for established members with centuries of diplomatic relations. Byung-Hoo adjusted his glasses and activated the holographic display with fumbling fingers. "Thank you, Chancellor. I must admit, I am more accustomed to lecture halls than galactic tribunals." A few nervous laughs echoed through the chamber. Veshra gestured for him to continue. "I am a professor of human history and anthropology," Byung-Hoo began. "For the past 30 years, I have studied the development of human civilization, trying to understand how we became what we are today. When the Valorian ships appeared at Earth, I was as surprised as anyone by our response. But after reviewing the battle footage and the casualty reports, I realized our actions were entirely predictable." He brought up an image of Earth from space, rotating slowly. "To understand humanity, you must first understand our homeworld. Earth is what we call a garden world, highly suitable for life. But it is also a dangerous place. Earthquakes, hurricanes, tsunamis, volcanic eruptions. Our planet has tried to kill us for our entire existence as a species." The image changed to show various natural disasters throughout human history. Cities destroyed by earthquakes. Coastlines drowned by tsunamis. Entire regions buried in volcanic ash. "We learned very early that the universe does not care about our survival," Byung-Hoo continued. "Nature is not benevolent. It will kill us if we are not careful, if we are not prepared, if we are not willing to fight for every day we continue to exist." A council member from the peaceful Luminari species raised a glowing appendage. "Surely all species face natural disasters. This does not explain your violent response to the Valorian fleet." "You are correct," Byung-Hoo acknowledged. "Natural disasters alone do not explain our behavior, but they are part of the foundation. We developed in an environment that taught us a simple lesson. Survival requires constant vigilance and the willingness to fight against overwhelming odds." He changed the display again, now showing archaeological sites. Ancient battlefields, ruined cities, mass graves. Humans have been fighting each other for at least 10,000 years. We have records of organized warfare going back to the earliest civilizations. We fought over territory, resources, religion, political ideology, even abstract concepts like honor and glory. The images continued. Medieval battles with thousands of armored warriors clashing in brutal melee. Naval warfare with wooden ships blasting each other with cannons. Trenches from the First Industrial War, where millions died for a few kilometers of muddy ground. We developed more efficient ways to kill each other with every generation, Byung-Hoo said quietly. We invented better weapons, better tactics, better strategies. We wrote books about warfare, studied it like a science, taught it in schools. War became part of our culture, our literature, our history. Tai-Sung interrupted from his section. "This only proves my point. Humans are a warlike species. They should be quarantined from civilized space." "Perhaps," Byung-Hoo agreed calmly, "but you misunderstand what I'm describing. We are not warlike because we love violence. We are warlike because we learned that the alternative to being good at war is extinction." He brought up a new image, showing Earth in the mid-20th century. The planet was divided into colored sections representing different nations, many of them in conflict. 200 years ago, humans fought a global war. We call it the Second World War. Over 70 million people died in 6 years. We used weapons that could destroy entire cities in seconds. We developed chemical agents that could kill through skin contact. We built machines designed for nothing but slaughter. The council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Such numbers were incomprehensible to most species. The largest war in Galactic Council history had resulted in barely 1 million casualties over 3 decades. "And then we invented nuclear weapons," Byung-Hoo continued. bombs that could level cities and poison the land for generations. Within 20 years, we had built enough nuclear weapons to destroy our entire civilization multiple times over. He showed footage of nuclear test explosions, mushroom clouds rising into the sky, shock waves flattening everything for kilometers. The council chamber fell completely silent. "We nearly destroyed ourselves," Byung-Hoo said. "We came very close." There were moments during what we called the Cold War when a single miscommunication, a single radar malfunction, could have triggered an exchange that would have ended human civilization. "How did you survive?" Veshra asked, genuinely curious. "Fear," Byung-Hoo answered simply. "We realized that our weapons had become too powerful. That war between major powers would result in mutual annihilation. So we developed deterrent strategies. We agreed to limits on weapon development. We created international organizations to prevent conflict." He showed images of the early space age. Satellites, space stations, moon landings. And we turned our attention outward. We reached for the stars, hoping to find something better out there than what we had on Earth. Many of us believed that once we became a spacefaring species, we would leave our violent past behind. The display changed to show more recent images. Human colonies on Mars and the moons of Jupiter. Mining operations in the asteroid belt. Research stations at the edge of the solar system. But we never truly left that past behind, Byung-Hoo admitted. We built our space stations with armored sections. Our colony ships included weapon systems, officially for asteroid deflection. Our expansion protocols assumed we might encounter hostile forces someday. An elderly council member from the aquatic depth species spoke up, her voice bubbling through her translation device. "I have studied the development of 47 spacefaring species. All of them achieved global unity before reaching the stars. All of them left their warlike tendencies behind when they outgrew their homeworlds. Why not humans? Because we reached space while still divided," Byung-Hoo explained. "We did not have a single unified government. We had dozens of nations, many of them in competition or outright conflict. The first satellites we launched were for military reconnaissance. Our first space stations were built with defense in mind. We reached the stars not as a unified species, but as rival nations extending their conflicts into a new arena." He brought up historical footage of the early space race. Two superpowers competing to be first to orbit, first to the moon, first to establish permanent presence beyond Earth. By the time we developed faster-than-light travel, we had spent 300 years building a military infrastructure in space. It was second nature to us. Every ship had weapons. Every station had defenses. Every colony had evacuation protocols and emergency plans. "So when the Valorian fleet appeared," Veshra said slowly, "you responded as you had been preparing to respond for centuries." "Exactly," Byung-Hoo confirmed. "We had wargamed this exact scenario hundreds of times. Hostile aliens appearing at Earth with superior technology. Our military academies taught courses on asymmetric warfare against advanced civilizations. Our strategic planners had developed dozens of contingency responses." Tae-Seung stood again. "This is insane. You planned for war against species you had never met. Species that might not even exist?" "We hoped for peace," Byung-Hoo replied. "We truly did. But we prepared for war, because that is what kept us alive for 10,000 years. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst." He changed the display one final time, showing statistics and demographic data. "I want to share something that might help the Council understand human capabilities. Earth's current population is 14 billion. Of those, approximately 2 billion have received some form of military training at some point in their lives, either through mandatory service, volunteer forces, or civilian defense programs. The number echoed through the chamber. 2 billion. That was more than the combined military forces of a dozen council species. Additionally, our civilian infrastructure is designed to convert to military production rapidly. The factories that build civilian transports can build warships. The facilities. The council reconvened after a full day of recess. Chancellor Vashra had spent that time consulting with military advisors from across the galaxy, and what they told her had shaken her fundamental understanding of warfare. She needed to see for herself what humanity was truly capable of. This tribunal calls Commander Dehayan of the Earth United Defense Forces, Veshra announced. The fourth human stood from the delegation section. He was younger than Admiral Jinho, but carried himself with the same military bearing. His uniform was different from the others, covered in patches and insignia that meant nothing to the council members, but clearly indicated extensive combat training. Dehan walked to the speaker's platform and stood at attention. Unlike Professor Byung-hoo's academic demeanor or Captain Hannah's calm professionalism, this human radiated controlled intensity. Several council members noticed that his hands, resting at his sides, bore scars. Commander Dehayan, Veshra began carefully. The council has reviewed Professor Byung-hoo's testimony regarding human history and cultural development. We understand now that humanity has extensive experience with warfare. However, we require clarification on your actual military capabilities. What could you have done if given time to prepare? Dehayan's expression did not change. How detailed would you like me to be, Chancellor? Completely detailed, Veshra replied. The council needs to understand what we are dealing with. Understood. Dehayan activated the holographic display. I will begin with our current inventory and work up to our theoretical capabilities. The display showed a standard human warship, similar to the civilian vessels that had fought the Valorians, but clearly purpose-built for combat. It was sleek and armored, bristling with weapon emplacements. This is a Defender-class frigate, Dehayan explained. Earth currently has 56 of these ships operational, with another 23 under construction. They are designed for system defense and patrol duties. Each one carries a complement of fighters, point defense lasers, railgun batteries, and missile pods. Railguns? A council member questioned. Kinetic weapons that use electromagnetic acceleration to fire projectiles at extremely high velocities. Dehayan clarified. A railgun slug traveling at a significant fraction of light speed carries tremendous kinetic energy. No shields, no armor, just pure momentum. Simple physics. He zoomed in on one of the railgun batteries. Each frigate carries 4 of these. Rate of fire is 1 round every 6 seconds. Maximum effective range in space is approximately 500,000 kilometers. At point-blank range, they can punch through most known armor types. The council members exchanged worried glances. Most galactic warships relied on energy shields and directed energy weapons. Kinetic weapons were considered primitive, but, as Dehayan explained, devastatingly effective. We also employ nuclear missiles, Dehayan continued, showing a missile battery. Not the mining charges we used against the Valorian fleet, but purpose-built weapons. Variable yield from 5 kilotons to 50 megatons. We can adjust the detonation to maximize electromagnetic pulse, thermal radiation, or kinetic shock depending on the target. Nuclear weapons are banned under the Galactic Warfare Conventions, a council member protested. They cause unnecessary suffering and environmental damage. We are not signatories to those conventions, Dehayan replied flatly. And we do not consider any weapon unnecessary if it helps us survive. Nuclear weapons are among humanity's oldest military technologies. We have refined them for 300 years. He changed the display to show a larger vessel. This is a Sentinel-class cruiser. We have 12 currently operational. They serve as command ships for frigate groups and carry heavier armament, including plasma cannons reverse-engineered from salvaged alien technology. You reverse-engineered weapons from debris? Taishun asked from his section, sounding disturbed. From your ships, specifically, Daehyun confirmed. After the battle, we recovered what remained of the Valorian fleet. Your energy weapons were impressive. We studied them, figured out how they worked, and built our own versions. Our plasma cannons are not quite as powerful as Valorian originals, but they are functional and improving. The implications hung heavy in the chamber. Humanity had been attacked, defended itself, and immediately began learning from the encounter to improve their own capabilities. Beyond our naval assets, Daehyun continued, Earth maintains extensive ground-based defenses. Orbital defense platforms, surface-to-space missile batteries, and what we call denial systems. Denial systems? Veshra asked. Weapons designed to make invasion costly or impossible, Daehyun explained. He showed images of Earth's surface, highlighting various installations. We have calculated that any species attempting to land ground forces on Earth would face immediate resistance from approximately 100 million armed civilians, backed by 300 million reserve military personnel who can be activated within 72 hours. The numbers were staggering. Most council species maintain professional militaries numbering in the thousands or, at most, tens of thousands. Our cities are designed to be defensible, Daehyun added. Underground bunker systems, hardened infrastructure, distributed power, and food production. We learned during our global wars that centralized systems are vulnerable. Modern Earth cities can function independently for months, even if completely cut off from outside support. He changed the display to show a cross-section of a city. Beneath the surface structures was a maze of tunnels, bunkers, and reinforced facilities. This is Seoul, one of Earth's major metropolitan centers. Population 40 million. In the event of invasion, the entire population can move underground within 6 hours. The subway system doubles as a bunker network. The buildings are designed to collapse in controlled ways to create obstacles. The power grid can isolate damaged sections and reroute automatically. You fortified your cities against invasion that might never come? A council member asked, shocked. Against invasion that we hoped would never come, Daehyun corrected, but for which we prepared nonetheless. This is standard across all major Earth cities and colonial settlements. We do not build anything without considering its defensive value. He pulled up new images showing human colonies on Mars, the moons of Jupiter, and in the asteroid belt. Our off-world colonies follow the same principles. Mars City is built inside old lava tubes, hardened against bombardment. The Jovian stations are designed to operate independently for years, if necessary. The asteroid mining facilities can convert to military production within days. Daehyun paused, letting the information sink in. Then he continued with something new. The council asked what we could have done if given time to prepare. Everything I have shown you so far is our current peacetime military. But Earth maintains detailed mobilization plans for total war scenarios. The display changed to show production facilities and shipyards. In the event of total war, Earth can convert approximately 60% of our industrial capacity to military production within 1 month. Our shipyards can begin producing warships instead of civilian vessels. Our factories can switch from consumer goods to weapons. We have warehoused enough raw materials to sustain this production for at least 2 years without new mining operations. How many ships could you build? Veshra asked quietly. Our most conservative estimates suggest we could field 1,000 warships within the first year of total mobilization. Daehyun answered. That number increases significantly in year 2 and beyond as we expand shipyard capacity and bring new facilities online. The council chamber erupted in shocked conversation. 1,000 warships. The entire Galactic Council fleet numbered approximately 3,000 ships across all member species. That assumes conventional construction, Dehayan continued over the noise. We are also developing rapid fabrication techniques using asteroids as raw material. If those techniques prove viable, we could potentially increase production tenfold. This is madness, Taesung shouted. You are describing the militarization of an entire species. We are describing our survival strategy, Dehayan replied calmly. Everything I have shown you is based on the assumption that someday someone might threaten human existence. And when that day comes, we will be ready. He changed the display one more time, showing weapons that made several council members visibly recoil. The council should also be aware of weapons we developed but chose not to deploy during the Valorian engagement. Chemical agents that can persist in atmospheres or aboard ships. Biological weapons engineered to target specific genetic markers. Kinetic projectiles accelerated to relativistic speeds that could devastate planetary surfaces. Relativistic weapons? Vesher's crystalline body actually darkened with concern. You have built planet killers? We have the theoretical knowledge to build them, Dehayan clarified. We have not actually constructed such weapons because we saw no need. But if Earth's survival required it, we could deploy relativistic kill vehicles within months. The chamber fell silent. A relativistic weapon, a projectile accelerated to near-light speed, carried enough kinetic energy to shatter continents or crack planetary crusts. They were considered weapons of extinction, banned by every civilized species. We also maintain extensive cyber warfare capabilities, Dehayan added. Our electronic warfare specialists the council deliberated for 3 full days. Behind closed doors, representatives from hundreds of species argued about what to do with humanity. Some wanted immediate restrictions placed on human expansion. Others suggested economic sanctions or technological limitations. A few, mostly military minds, quietly suggested that humanity might need to be contained by force before they became too powerful to control. That last suggestion died quickly when military analysts presented their calculations. Any attempt to forcibly restrict humanity would require committing the entire Galactic Council fleet, and even then, success was far from guaranteed. The cost in lives and resources would be catastrophic, and there was no guarantee that Earth would not simply accelerate their military development in response. Chancellor Veshra listened to every argument, reviewed every analysis, and consulted with her advisors until her crystalline structure ached from exhaustion. Finally, on the morning of the 4th day, she called the council to order. The chamber filled quickly. Word had spread throughout the station that a verdict was imminent. The gallery was packed with observers, and several news services from various species had set up recording equipment. This would be a historic moment, regardless of the outcome. The human delegation took their seats quietly. Captain Hannah, Admiral Jinho, Professor Byung-Hu, Commander Dehayan, and the 5th member of their group, a woman named Yuna, who served as Earth's chief diplomatic officer. They had spoken little during the 3-day recess, spending most of their time in their assigned quarters, waiting. Taesung sat in the Valorian section, flanked by his legal advisors and several high-ranking members of the Valorian Empire. He still carried himself with confidence, though it was more strained than before. The past few days had not been kind to his reputation. Chancellor Veshra took her position at the central podium. The chamber fell silent immediately. This tribunal has reached its conclusions, she announced, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. We will address several matters in sequence. First, the question of Ambassador Taesung's actions. Taesung stood, his expression neutral but his eyes hard. The Council has reviewed all evidence regarding the military strike on Earth, Veshra continued. While Ambassador Taesung's actions technically fell within the parameters of the integration protocols, the Council finds that he demonstrated catastrophic failure in threat assessment and diplomatic judgment. A murmur ran through the chamber. Technically within parameters, but still a failure. It was a careful political stance. The integration protocols were written under the assumption that newly spacefaring species would respond rationally to displays of superior force, Veshra explained. The Council now understands that this assumption was flawed. Not all species develop along the same cultural and historical paths. Humanity represents a significant deviation from expected patterns. She turned to face Taesung directly. Ambassador, you engaged in military action against a species without first conducting proper cultural analysis. You assumed humans would behave like every other species the Council had encountered. That assumption cost the Valorian Empire 11 warships and over 4,000 lives. It could have cost much more. Taesung's face reddened, but he remained silent. Therefore, Veshra declared, this Council strips you of your ambassadorial rank and removes you from all diplomatic positions. You are fined the sum of 10 million galactic credits to be paid to the families of those who died under your command. Additionally, the Valorian Empire is ordered to pay reparations to Earth for the 63,000 human casualties, in the amount of 100 million credits. The Valorian section erupted in angry protests, but Veshra's voice cut through the noise. The alternative, she said coldly, is that we declare the attack on Earth an act of war and allow humanity to seek their own justice. Would the Valorian Empire prefer that outcome? The protests died immediately. Everyone in the chamber had seen the battle footage. Everyone understood what humanity was capable of when defending themselves. No one wanted to see what they could do when actively seeking revenge. The Council rules that Earth was acting in legitimate self-defense, Veshra continued. No sanctions or restrictions will be placed on human military development or expansion. The destruction of the Valorian fleet is considered a proportional response to an unprovoked attack. She paused, letting that sink in. Then she moved to the second matter. However, the Council must also address the broader implications of humanity's entrance into galactic civilization. We have learned things about human culture and capabilities that concern us deeply. Yuna stood from the human delegation. Chancellor, may I speak? Veshra gestured her forward. Yuna walked to the speaker's platform with calm, measured steps. She was smaller than the other humans, with an unassuming presence that made her easy to overlook. But when she spoke, her voice carried quiet authority. The Council is concerned about humanity, Yuna said simply. We understand that. We know we are different from other species. We know our history is violent and our capabilities are frightening. But we hope the Council will judge us not on what we can do, but on what we choose to do. Pretty words, a Council member called out. But your representatives have spent days describing weapons and tactics designed to kill on scales we cannot comprehend. How can we trust that such capabilities will not be used aggressively? Because we gain nothing from aggression, Yuna replied. Earth is one planet with a few scattered colonies. The galaxy is vast beyond imagining, with thousands of inhabited worlds and hundreds of spacefaring species. We are not so foolish as to think we could conquer or dominate such a community, even if we wanted to. She activated the holographic display, showing Earth and its colonies. What we want is simple. We want to exist peacefully. We want to trade, to learn, to grow. We want our children to have a future where they can explore the stars without fear. Every weapon we have built, every defense we have prepared, is designed to protect that future, not to threaten yours. Words, Taesung spat from his section. Nothing but words. You have shown us your weapons. You have demonstrated your willingness to kill without hesitation. And now you expect us to believe you come in peace? Yuna turned to face him directly. We killed your people because you attacked our home, Ambassador. That is not aggression. That is survival. We did not seek you out. We did not enter Valorian space with weapons charged. You came to us, uninvited and hostile. Everything that followed was your choice, not ours. She looked back at the council. Humanity offers the galaxy a simple bargain. Leave us alone, and we will leave you alone. Trade with us honestly, and we will trade honestly in return. Respect our sovereignty, and we will respect yours. But threaten our existence, and we will fight with everything we have. That is exactly what concerns us, Veshra said quietly. Humanity's definition of threat may be very different from ours. What you consider defensive actions, others might see as aggressive posturing. Then help us understand, Yuna replied. Earth has been isolated for its entire existence. We developed in a vacuum, without guidance or context from older civilizations. We made mistakes because we did not know better. But we are willing to learn. She gestured to the assembled council. You represent thousands of years of collective wisdom about how species can coexist peacefully. Share that wisdom with us. Teach us your customs, your laws, your expectations. We are not so arrogant as to think our way is the only way. We are simply doing the best we can with the knowledge we have. Chancellor Veshra considered this carefully. And if we ask you to limit your military development, to stop building weapons and warships, we would refuse, Yuna said honestly. Our history has taught us that safety comes from strength, not from trust in others' goodwill. But we would be willing to discuss transparency measures. Inspections, perhaps. Verification protocols. Ways for the Council to monitor our capabilities and be assured that they remain defensive in nature. The chamber buzzed with conversation as council members discussed this proposal. It was more than anyone had expected. Transparency was rare in galactic politics. Most species guarded their military capabilities carefully. Veshra called for silence and made her decision. The Galactic Council hereby extends full membership to Earth, effective immediately. Shock rippled through the chamber. Full membership, skipping the usual probationary period entirely. It was unprecedented. Earth will have full voting rights and access to all Council resources, Veshra continued. In exchange, Earth agrees to monthly reports on military development and allows Council inspection teams to visit human facilities on a rotating schedule. She paused, then added the final piece. Additionally, Earth is designated as a protected homeworld under Section 7 of the Galactic Charter. Any military action against Earth or its colonies will be considered an attack on the Council itself and will be met with collective response from all member species. The designation sent a chill through the chamber. Protected homeworld status was the highest level of protection the Council could offer, usually reserved for species that had suffered near-extinction events or faced existential